see another day. As we continue in this Lenten season, Lord, allow us to see you in your fullness. Allow us, God, as we see you, to see ourselves no longer chained by anything, certainly not by our financial situations. We thank you, God, for financial freedom, and not just for us, but for our children and our children's children. We thank you, God, and ask that you bless Sister Jackson as she brings this presentation on this morning. Give us ears to hear, a heart and mind to receive, and then to take the information that she gives us to use it uh, for our good and for your glory. And it is in the name of Jesus that we come, thanking you for hearing and answering our prayers. Amen. I've already given you a preference, so now I want to introduce our speaker, Dr. Rolanda Jackson, who I've known for some years. She sent me her bio, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it does tell you that she is prepared in head, in heart, and in spirit to speak to us on today. First and foremost, I want you to know that she is a woman of God, and she serves God diligently in her local church and on the presiding elders level and on the connectional level. She's an active member. She put that word in there, so I want y'all to hear it. An active member of St. Luke AME, I'm sorry, that's me, St. Matthew AME Church, under the leadership of Reverend Dr. Glenelle Lee Pruitt. Dr. Pruitt, I was not trying to poach. That was just a misspeaking on my behalf. An active member of St. Matthew AME Church under the leadership of Reverend Dr. Glenelle Lee Pruitt, where she currently serves as steward, choir president, director of social media, and a member of the Budget and Finance Committee. She also serves as Central North Louisiana Conference CDMC Commissioner, and currently is the Central North Louisiana Conference Young People's Division Director. She holds a bachelor's degree in business management from Southern University A&M College, a master's of management from the University of Phoenix, and a PhD in industrial and organizational psychology from Grand Canyon University. She also holds an insurance license and is the CEO and team leader of the Reed Jackson Home Group at Keller Williams, Northwest Louisiana, where she and her team are ranked in the top 20% of agents in Northwest Louisiana out of more than 1,000 agents. Any men on the line, just pull back, because she is well married and has two beautiful children, three, Tyler, Michael, and Cameron, and her newest fur baby, Kobe. She's a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha, Delta Lambda Omega chapter, and she loves giving back to others. And that's why she's here today, to give something to us. So I am excited, I am elated. So let's open our ears and our minds to receive what Dr. Jackson has for us. And we'll leave a few minutes at the end for questions and answers. Take it away, Dr. Jackson.
Well, good morning, everyone. I bring you greetings, as Reverend Reese said, from St. Matthew AME Church in Shreveport, where Dr. Pruitt is my pastor. And I often tell people, since Michael is not here with me this morning, we were actually at choir rehearsal, so I stepped out. I can say she is my biggest fan next to my husband, so I changed the order if they're in the room together. But it is just a blessing. And I thank you, Reverend Reese and the St. Luke family, for allowing me the opportunity, or inviting me, should I say, the opportunity to come and speak with you on today. I think I've got this presentation down pretty good. I've had the opportunity to give it a couple times over the last few weeks, as a matter of fact. So I'll try not to be redundant for those persons who've heard it already, but I will reiterate for those people who have heard it and just may need to, refine some issues in it, or refine some of the important aspects of it, should I say. She said it's near and dear to my heart. I like to say that because I've been one of those people who've been on both sides of the coin, where we've had no life insurance, where we've had some life insurance, where we've had good credit, where we've had bad credit. And I tell people all the time, it's about life. It's just the roller coaster of life. Life happens, and it's what we learn from life and what we do from that, which propels us to our future. And so I want to make sure that I have the opportunity to always share real life stories with people where they are in the midst of who they are, to let them know, this is just a moment in time, and we can move forward and move past where we are, but we just have to understand and do the work. And so that's what I want to kind of talk a little bit about on today. I believe Miss Yanni, I always say it wrong, but Yanni, okay, has a PowerPoint.
Oh, you got it, Lonnie.
Lonnie, okay. The Y. I just want to use the Y. Coming from somebody who has a silent H, I don't understand why I do that. Okay. There's a PowerPoint presentation, if you would share for me, please. And so today we are going to focus on two sides of the coin this time. It's going to be credit, but a little of personal finance, because they really go hand in hand. Next screen, please. As Reverend Reese said, I won't spend much time, but I would like to, just share a little bit about my background. I have an insurance license currently. It's a life and health license. I did let my property and casualty go for now, but I spent 12 years as a licensed property and casualty agent, and that's going to be your home, auto, think of that lines of insurance from that perspective. And currently I have my real estate license, and I've had it for 6 years, but I've been a notary public for 22 years. And it has worked out that each of those licensures work together for in various situations. And so as I present today about credit and about finance, it will be from the perspective of not just what the book says, it's what life and experience has shown us and how we can apply it. And so I don't profess to be an expert at all things, but I have a very good working knowledge. And that's what we want to work from today, that working knowledge. We were asked to talk about what is credit. And you can go ahead and release all the lines on this screen. What is credit? Credit is another word for a loan. And we have three main types of credit. The reality of it is, if you don't have cash in hand, you're using some form of credit. And so there's going to be three main types of credit. People may not walk around saying the word credit, but if you don't have the cash in hand and you're not exchanging the cash for the service or the product, there is a form of credit that you're exercising. And so you have sales credit. And it's when you walk up, you make a purchase for something, you may use your credit card. And so you are using a form of credit. You pay cash when you're asking for or you're getting something in return for a promise to pay it back later. So it can be a cash payment. And then you have a service credit. The service credit is usually obtained through your utilities, the dentist, the hospital, things that will be paid later. And oftentimes we forget about service credit, because the reality of it is, if I have insurance and I am promising to pay my portion now, but in the event, if you've ever read the fine print of what you sign when you go to the hospital or you pay utilities, if there's ever a third party that is responsible for a payment of the other portion of your bill, you do realize you're saying that if my insurance carrier, Blue Cross Blue Shield, or somebody does not pay their portion for whatever reason, I am saying that I will pay that balance. And so it's a service credit also. So when you're talking about credit, we're not just talking about a credit card. We're talking about promises to pay. There are advantages. No, you were correct. There are advantages to having credit. Please release all screens. The advantages to having credit, basically it stimulates the economy. When we borrow or when we place money in banks on a day-to-day basis, do you realize that other banks are actually loaning out that money overnight? So you'll hear people talk about what the stock markets are doing. When there's credit being loaned, interest makes money for the economy. It makes money for banks. It makes money for those persons who are lending it. And so when you have credit, it does stimulate the economy. It helps us take care of emergencies if we don't have cash, available in hand. But it also allows us the opportunity to establish our own credit ratings. And we'll talk about credit ratings later in the presentation. It allows us to get cash back if we need it. We don't advocate for that, but it's definitely an opportunity. And then it's easier to exchange items when we don't have a receipt. We placed it up on our card. So there's really a paper trail of doing it. And you have a detailed monthly bill. It allows people, some people use credit from the perspective of it allows them to keep track of what they are spending on, because you'll get a detailed bill at the end of each month and I can better track. Am I eating out a lot? Am I spending a lot on gas? Where am I going? So there's a reason that you want to do that. Next screen, please. There are also disadvantages of credit. Those disadvantages are the obvious. It costs money to make money. It costs money to loan money. So there's an interest on it. And you have to be very careful about your interest rates. And I hope after this presentation, people who have credit cards will look at what their credit card interest rates are. Interest rates won't hurt you as much if you're paying the bills in full. But if you carry those balances from month to month, then there is an annual cost and a monthly cost to carrying that interest. It is risky because you're not sure if I make a bill on credit, will I have a job next month or 6 months from now or a year from now? So it's just like with buying a car. People are loaning you money on the understanding or the expectation that that loan will be paid in full at a period certain in the future. And so it's risky. There's a certain amount of risk. We think about careless purchasing versus needs versus wants, and understanding, do I have to have this now? Can I wait? So there's a lot of things that go into bad choices with credit that can ultimately lead to bankruptcy. Next screen, please. There are several reporting agencies, and those agencies, you've probably heard them. It's Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. People don't always know what their credit score is. And so after we finish this particular presentation, I would encourage everyone, if you have not checked your credit score, you want to check it on a regular basis. Generally speaking, we have an excellent credit score of a 750, but somewhere between that 7 and 749, you're going to be considered to have good credit. 650 to 699 fair credit, 550 to 649 poor, and 300 to 549 bad. And I can tell you, and I'm not ashamed because I'm proud of the work that we've done, I've been in every category. And as I said earlier, life will sometimes, not with everyone, but life will sometimes take you through each one of them when we make decisions, and those decisions lead to certain consequences. Next screen. You have your credit ratings, or sometimes you're often referred to as a credit score. When you're talking about your credit rating, it's just your credit worthiness that a lender will look at you and decide based on your history. Is this person reliable from the perspective of, if I loan them money, what is the probability they're going to pay it back? And so that's all that your credit score tells about you. It tells how long you've worked. It tells previous addresses. It tells how much you make per year. And so a lot of times people don't take time when they are filling out applications to report, the accurateness. I've had clients that say, well, we can fix it once I turn in my check stubs, or once we get to that part. But what we don't realize is that every time you do a credit application, the information that is obtained from that application becomes a part of your credit history and your credit rating. So if you pull your credit score now, it will know what you make, not because that employer reported it, but because you reported it. So you want to make sure the information that you're putting on your applications is accurate. And when you're making more money, you want to report, when you're doing applications, your increases, because it all goes into building a beautiful credit profile that you want someone to see it and have no reservations about if I would be interested in loaning money or extending a credit line to you. And of course, a poor credit rating indicates that you have a high risk of defaulting, which means you're probably not going to make those payments, or in return, because of the risk that they're taking on, they'll offer you a higher credit rate. A higher interest rate that will in turn make you have to pay back more. Why does my credit score look different? You'll hear people say, well, when I ran it at home, I got a 350, or I'm sure I say really a 600, but then when the lender ran it, they said I only had a 450 or 4. I see big swings in credit ratings on a regular basis. It's because you have to understand how the scores are developed and who's using which score. A Vantage score ranges from a 3.0 to a 4.0, but it also gives you a score. I'm sorry, the Vantage 3.0 or the 4.0 gives you a score from 300 to 850. The Vantage score looks at specifically your credit utilization, credit mix, and experience. What that means is when you say credit utilization, how much credit you had access to versus how much you actually use. Layman's example, I've got $1,000 credit card I have a credit card with $1,000 credit limit, but I've only chosen to use $100 of it. So my credit utilization is very low, which is a plus on your credit score. So the kinds of credit that you have, I have a credit card, then I have my mortgage, but I also have a dealer's card, or I have a credit, a line of credit for maybe if I'm doing business. So when you say credit mix, it's the different kinds of credit banks or organizations have afforded to you. So you want to make sure that you have a good credit mix. The reason being, each kind of credit line means something different. Installment payments will tell you, from credit cards and loans, will tell you a payment is due every month of a set amount, versus some of your lines of credit, they may vary depending on how much you've borrowed, if you're building a home or if you're about to buy certain items. So your payments will vary, which shows a different payment schedule, that you have access to regular liquidable funds that you can use. So that credit mix and experience, meaning length of time that you've had access to credit, all of that builds a credit score. When you speak specifically to FICO scores will have that same range of 300 to 850, but the FICO score takes into consideration payment history on a month-to-month basis, your debt, your credit history, your credit mix, and then it looks at how many new credit inquiries you've had. And because people don't realize, when you have new credit inquiries, if you don't open a line at to match up with the inquiry, it may say one of two things. The person doesn't have a lot of cash on hand to make their payments or to buy what they're wanting to buy, or it can tell someone else that they've been turned down by multiple agencies. So why are they being turned down? So when you look at a lot of inquiries and new credit, it paints a picture that may or may not be accurate. And so the FICO score, most people will use, or most companies will use FICO scores because they want a true look, a holistic look at what I need to know before I extend credit or give this person money. It gives a full range of hypotheticals and possibilities of if this person is credit worthy. Next screen. How do I check my credit? Everyone, I would hope and pray, will take a picture of this screen, or they'll go to annualcreditreport.com. And this happened not long after President Obama took office, but there's an app that allows you to check your credit report yearly, free of charge. because there was such a rise in um, uh, identity theft and false reporting. It's a tool that gives individuals an opportunity to follow what's on their credit profiles and dispute any inaccuracies. And so annualcreditreport.com lets you pull your credit report, not score, once per year. As a result of COVID, the government has allowed you to actually pull it once a week. And so, because people were at home and maybe you set up a payment arrangements because of the shutdown, the great shutdown of 2020 and 21, there were things that were reporting inaccurate. So now you can actually pull your credit report every 7 days. I'm not sure how long that's going to last, but the point is, pull your bureau, and you can pull all three of them from annualcreditreport.com. They will not have your credit score on there, but it will show you, remember what we talked about, those monthly payment histories that your FICA is going to be needing to report on. So it'll tell you if you've been making payments for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. It will tell you if anything is reporting negatively. It will tell you if there have been any inquiries. So you want to make sure that you go to annualcreditreport.com on a regular basis. As long as they are allowing you to pull it, please use it. And it does not hurt your credit score. If you use CreditWise, you can get CreditWise for free. I personally like CreditWise, different from the commercial that you'll see, Credit Karma. Credit Karma uses the Vantage score. So now that we've talked about these words, you'll be able to talk and speak to them and know exactly what people are referring to. Credit Karma uses a Vantage score. It's not going to be your FICO score, but it gives you a snapshot of what your score looks like. So it's always good to have some knowledge to be powerful about yourself. CreditWise is very similar, but CreditWise, from what we can figure, does use the FICA 3. Don't quote me on that, but there's a couple of FICAs, but it's closer to that FICA 6 score that most lenders use. So CreditWise is from Capital One. If you have any kind of Capital One account or credit card, it's free of charges in your app. If you have a Sam's Club account, Sam's Club offers it also. If you've got any of the American Express cards, you have so many opportunities, because at the end of the day, people, or should I say organizations, want you to be knowledgeable about where your credit score stands and what is reporting. So there's so many free opportunities to get your Vantage score, which will help you kind of stay in tune with your FICA. If you want the actual FICA score, I would encourage you to go to myfica.com, and you can pay for the monthly FICA, or you can do a one-time 30-day FICA score. But just make sure whatever you sign up for, I give this speech to my children all the time. If you sign up for it and it's free, remember there's a trial period, and trial periods come to an end. Don't forget to go back and cancel, because there's usually a charge afterwards. Next slide. Things that hurt your credit score. The obvious, late payments. The later the payment, the more it hurts. 30, 60, 90 days. Inquiries that we've talked about. Canceling versus zero balances. Let's talk about that. It's always a good thing to carry a zero balance. A zero balance says that I could use that card, but I didn't need to use it because I have balanced my monthly budget to the perspective of I can pay cash for what I need, or I can use my card and I can pay it off at the end of 30 days. So I'm not carrying balances from month to month. That is the best thing that you could do for your credit score, aside from making payments on time. But when you cancel the card, remember what we talked about on a previous screen about that Vantage score and the FICA score. It's length of your credit history. So by canceling a card, it will eventually just go to zero, and it won't show up on your credit report. And so it's not helping you. So make sure that when you pay your balances off, Leave the cards open, especially if you've got cards that you've had 7, 10, 12 years. Those are the best positive inquiry, the positive, things that you're putting on your bureaus. Avoid maxing out a card. The magic number for most lenders is about 40%. Some will say 30. So if you can do 30, 35, the magic number for making sure that it's reporting positive to your credit bureau is making sure you have not charged on any cards that you're carrying balances forward on more than 30, 35%. Once you get to that 30, 35%, it will hurt your overall credit score. So if you quick math, if you've got a $500 credit card, make sure that you're carrying less than about $150 balance on that card on a regular basis, okay? Lack of diversity, making sure that you have your student loans, if you've got student loans, but having a credit card. If you don't have a credit card, make sure you're having installment payments. And guys, ladies and gentlemen, you can actually have your landlord, if you're renting and if it's a private person, your landlord can report. They have apps now that they call it self-reporting. You can self-report payments. Just make sure that you're reporting the positive payments. We've had some people who have reported some of their late payments, and we're just like, it's not helping. So make sure that anyone that you're making payments to, you want to make sure that you have the opportunity. Please go forward. Have the opportunity to report those monthly payments. Something else to consider. Why is good credit versus bad credit a topic of conversation? I like to use this example when we talk about good versus bad. And remember on the previous screen, good credit is somewhere around a 700. And I would even go as far as to say fair, because what we're finding is if you've got about a 680, we can kind of lump you in the category of approaching good, okay? If you've got a 680 and above, you want to be considered that good credit. Anything falling below that 660 mark, and I use that because of mortgages, 660 and below, we need to have some real conversations, okay? Here's why it's important. Two good AMEs walk into the bank. One has bad credit, one has good credit. We're going to assume both people have been working on their job for the exact same time. They are making the same amount of money every year. They live in the same city. They may even attend the same church. This is, for all intents and purposes, the exact same AME that's walking in. They are both walking in asking for a $3,000 credit card. One has bad credit, one has good credit. The bad credit person will experience 18% interest. The good credit person will experience 4% interest. If they're making the same payments, one will pay that $3,000 off in 22 years. One will pay they will pay that credit card off in 11 years. The person with good credit would have only paid $3,400, and the person with bad credit would have paid $7,100 on that same $3,000 credit card. This is major because if you think about it, a $3,000 credit card, which could have paid my son's tuition this semester, our portion that was left, or it could have, paid a medical bill that we just had to have. I'm going to be stuck paying for that for 22 years. And for 22 years, that will come up in every conversation that we have about purchasing a house, purchasing a car. It will come up taking out a loan. That one card will follow you for 22 years because I had quote unquote bad credit. And that's why we're really here today. What decisions we're making now can potentially affect us for years to come. Next slide. From let's transition just a little bit from the credit portion. We understand how important credit is. But I wanted to, before we end it today, to spend some time talking about life insurance. Because the reality of it is our lack of life insurance eventually affects our credit. They work hand in hand. There are three basic forms of life insurance. We'll add a fourth, but the thing about life insurance is that all life insurance, whatever company you work for, will fall into one of these three categories. They may slightly change the name, but the category itself will not change. Whole life, term life, universal life, and group life. Next slide, please. Whole life insurance. The easiest way to remember what whole life insurance is you're going to pay for it for the whole of your life. And when I say pay for it, I'm referring to the premiums. Your monthly premiums will be paid every month until that person passes away or reaches the age of 100. It's just that simple, the whole of your life. Why people like whole life and why we always encourage whole life is because whatever price you purchase, the age, we call it your attained age, whatever age you purchase that policy, that price is locked in for life, regardless of health, regardless of age, doesn't matter. If you purchase a policy when the baby is 15 days out of the womb, if it's $10, it will be $10 for the whole of that child's life. Whole life policies carry what we call living benefits. Those are called cash values. Here's just a quick exercise on understanding whole life. If you're making payments of, let's just say, $20 per month, the reason whole life insurance is important is because $20 doesn't actually cost, that's not the real cost of the insurance. The insurance itself may only cost, for the sake of an illustration, $5. The company will then take that $15 and invest it. That's their proceeds. Those are their proceeds. Those are their profits off of you purchasing the life insurance policy. But when the company makes money on those $15, they will in turn give you dividends back to your policy. So you may own a $20,000 whole life policy and you're making you're making those $20 payments. The longer that policy is in force, let's say 10 years, your $20,000 face value will never change. But when that person passes away, they will get the face value of the policy along with the dividends that have been growing throughout the term that they have owned and paid into that policy. So if the company has made $2,000 on that policy, remember those investments of $15, when that person dies, they will receive $22,000 or $25,000 or $30,000. So on any policy that you get, they'll give you an amortization of how that policy looks for the whole life. And it will show you in year 10, you'll have cash values of $10,000. You have cash values of $15,000 in year. And if you're with a reputable company, your face value should double, maybe even triple. Because the longer you live, the more premiums you're paying, the more the company makes money, the company gives back dividends. So whole life policies are ideal for cash values that we call living benefits if you need a loan against your policy. Some people have used them to pay for college, medical expenses. Those are living benefits that cash values offer when you have a whole life policy. A term policy, premiums are paid for a specific term, meaning I can buy a 5-year term, a 10-year term, a 20-year term, or a 30-year term. Those are the increments. Remember, life insurance is regulated, so the terms are going to be consistent across any company. So if I bought a 30-year term at age 30, it will remain the same in premiums until I turn 60. And then at age 60, I will then have to buy, it's a renewable term. I will start over, all over at age 60. And now I have to pay the rates for a 60-year-old. Notice the difference between a whole life policy and a term life policy. The premiums are locked in, whatever age you buy, versus the term policy, the premiums are locked in for that term and they will start at the new age. Some of the problems with term life is that they only renew to age 80, 85, depending on that company. And then if you don't have any other insurance to rely on, you now are 80 and have no insurance. There are no cash values and there's no more insurance. And so that's a very tricky kind of game that we play with our life. But let's be clear, term insurance is very valuable because the premiums are usually very small, because the insurance company is banking on you're going to outlive this term and I don't owe you anything. And you're banking on I'm going to be paying very small premiums, but if I die, I'm paying you, the company will be paying out a much larger premium to my beneficiaries. So it's a win-win for both parties. Whole life premiums are usually a little bit higher, term life a little bit lower, okay? Universal life policies are the perfect combination of whole and term. The premiums are designed to be paid for the life, like whole life policy, but you have flexibility. And when we say flexibility, a portion of the premiums you're paying in go into an account, and it's called your account. The account will, because you're paying a lower amount like term, but you're getting whole life benefits, as you get older, you can opt to keep the same level payment, or you can opt to increase the payments to reflect my age going up. So it has whole life benefits, but it has term benefits also. But the account that you have in the middle allows that if there's ever a point where I've elected to make smaller payments and my payments are not paying for the true cost of insurance, it will pull from that account until that account reaches zero. If that account ever reaches zero, then my policy itself will lapse because there's nobody funding it. What I personally am paying is not enough to pay what the actual cost of life insurance is, and I have nothing left in my account. It's tricky, but it's a great policy to have if you understand why you have it and what your long-term benefits are going to be. And then you have group life. Group life premiums are paid while you're employed at your employer. You're paying a very small amount that you've opted in to pay, and then your employer pays the difference. Of all four, before you change the screen, of all four of these types of life insurance policies, you can't go wrong. You go wrong when you don't understand what it is you have, what it is you have and why you have it. In a perfect world, someone should have a mixture of whole and term life. Because when I'm young, I want to secure whole life because I want to secure the price. As I also want to have term life because in my younger years, I have a car, I have a home, I've got these credit cards, I have young children. And if something happens to me and I'm not here to physically provide for my family, I want to make sure that I'm leaving a large amount of money to take care of my debts and leave something for my family, which is why term life is important. And if you don't want to buy two different policies, in walks Universal Life, which will give you that best of both worlds. Group life is like I say, it's almost like a no-brainer. You're getting a very large sum of money for a very small price because your employer is using it as a benefit for your employment there. So usually if you look at your check statements or your check stubs from your employers, your group life policy will usually cost you a few dollars a month, like $1, $2, $3, $4 a month, if that much. The thing that you have to be careful about with group life insurance is understanding if my only form of coverage for myself and my family is through my employer, what happens when I change employers? That policy is only good for while I was working at State Farm or while I was working for the USDA. Once I leave that employer, there are no benefits and you cannot carry those benefits with you. So don't, as we would say as a cliche, don't put all your eggs in a basket of I've got insurance through my employer. Okay, next screen, please. Why do I need life insurance? Life insurance provides generational wealth to our heirs. You know, in a time of mourning, do we want our family worrying about how they are going to bury us? I think if you just ask and people would be honest, most of us have had a family member or two that have died without life insurance. And it's embarrassing personally, you know, to have to need people to help bury a family member. You know, we unfortunately had to do it with my mom because she had group life insurance. And at 40 years old, at 45, she didn't think that she was going to pass away at 45. But it happened. And she had just changed jobs. And so there were no benefits. We thought we were covered. There were none. And it's happened, you know, before, but it's an example of when we know better, we do better. We start asking questions. We start going around. Do you have insurance? Do you have insurance? Not only do you have it, but what do you have? I could give you examples all day, but I won't. But I will give you this other example. Asking the wrong questions is just as bad as not asking the question. Because we've asked my grandmother. My grandmother lived till she was 95 years old. And my grandmother thought she had insurance. And the insurance man, that's what she called him, came to our house every month. And we knew that there was a blue envelope and a yellow envelope. And I'm sure that sounds familiar to people even in 2022. There was a blue envelope and a yellow envelope hanging on the door that when the insurance man, the good insurance man came, she would have her money in that envelope and she would give it to him. And she paid every month backdating to 1955. And this is a real example. And my grandmother passed in 2012. So from 1955 to 2012, he came to our house every day. He was like family until she passed away. And we went to collect that policy from the good insurance man. And that policy was worth $550. She paid him every month for a little over 50 years for $550. But she thought she had life insurance. And she did, but it did not reflect 2012. It reflected 1955, when that may have been enough to bury someone. So we want to make sure that we know what we have, and we want to we call it, we analyze it on a financial basis every year. Go back and revisit what you have each year. Your children are changing. Some people are getting married. Some people are getting divorced. I worked in the insurance office for 10 years solid. You would be surprised what it was like when the ex-wife came in and collected the money, and the new wife was really confused. But the ex-wife was still the beneficiary of the policy. Happens more often than you understand. And it's uncontestable because that's a contract. It's not a question of if we're going to die, but when we die. It's going to happen. And what legacy do we want to leave our young people, our children, our churches? You know, there's an opportunity that if we love our churches, and my church is the beneficiary on one of my life policies. Now, I don't want them to go off and hack me or hurry me up out of here, but just know, you know, that they are, because it's my opportunity to give back to my church that I love and I've worshiped with, and that's done so much for my family. I wanted to make sure that I left them something too. If we leave nothing on the table today, we must understand GoFundMe is not and was never designed to be an insurance policy. And unfortunately, our community, and I would say our community, has looked at an opportunity of generosity from people to fund their burial. And that's not fair, it's not right, and it's a very dangerous practice. Next slide, please. I'm going to recap. We're almost at the end. If you have questions, we'll take those questions about life insurance, but I do want to finish the presentation with vocabulary. I won't hit every vocabulary screen, so we can kind of go through them. Miss Lonnie, but when you hear the word authorized user just means you've given someone permission to use your card. They are not financially responsible for it, but you are financially responsible for it. But it is an excellent way to build credit for your children, for your spouses. It just means they have the authority to go use the card. You can actually add someone as an authorized user and not give them a card, which is what I would recommend. We don't want to spend a lot of time on bankruptcy, but we understand that a person files bankruptcy, they're unable to make the payments for the debt that they owe. And so they're asking the government to release them from it. The next screen has charge off and co-signer. A charge off is just something that's been on a company's books so long that they are unable to collect it, and they've just decided we're just going to write this off as bad debt and we'll take it as a loss on our taxes. A co-signer, someone who's going to be equally responsible. So oftentimes co-signer and authorized user are confused. So co-signer and my phone is a hotline this morning. I'm sorry. Co-signer and authorized user are oftentimes confused, and they are responsible when you're a co-signer. Next slide, please. Credit repair and debt to income. We've talked about debt to income before. Debt to income just simply discusses how much you owe versus how much you make. And as a note here, the more you make does not mean the more you spend. Operate from a perspective. If I'm getting a raise or I am making more money and I'm accustomed to operating on my monthly basis based on X number of dollars, continue on operating on what you know to be familiar with, and save or invest what your new income is. Credit repair, I will always stand firm and say, think twice before you do credit repair. Credit repair is designed to supposedly erase inaccuracies on your credit report. There are opportunities that if someone is reporting inaccurate on your bureau, you by all means have the legal right to have it removed. Then there's the conversation of removing things that I know is accurate and I just want it to disappear so I can go purchase something else. That is truly what credit repair is designed for, which makes it a game. And that's the best way that I can explain it. It's a game. It's a game of me disputing, hoping that it's going to be removed long enough for me to obtain new credit so that my score will go up, and it may or may not come back. But you're paying people to play this game with you, understanding, and some people don't understand, if it's accurate at some point in the future, it's going to be put back on. Next slide, please. You have foreclosure and grace period. A foreclosure, and there are forms of foreclosure, or should I say there are stages of foreclosure. Foreclosure is when a borrower has defaulted on a loan or mortgage, and the creditor has the legal process to claim ownership of the collateral property. So if you stop making payments on your house, the mortgager, Wells Fargo, Regions, whoever your mortgage company is, has the legal right to come in and claim that property. There are stages of it. And so if you ever find yourself in a situation where I'm not able to make payments, the one free piece of advice I would give you, make a phone call to the mortgage company. Have the conversation. Communication is everything. There are things in place to help people avoid foreclosure. No company wants to have to be responsible for a whole community of homes that they've now got to figure out who's the owner. They've got to make payment, not make payments, they've got to sell them. It's in their best interest to help you make payments. So if you ever find yourself unable to make that payment, communicate with the creditor. Because if you can avoid a foreclosure, you can have a short sale, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But there are ways you can roll the payments to the back end of the loan. You just want to try to avoid the foreclosure. Grace period is the time in which the payment is due versus when it's not due. You can keep going. And a hard inquiry is when you're actually requesting your credit score because you're requesting a loan. Some of you will have the opportunity over the course of your life to do a home equity line of credit, often called a HELOC. It's just using the amount of equity in your home, meaning how much it's actually valued at versus how much you owe. The amount in between is your equity. And so you're making a loan against your equity, and your home is the collateral for that loan. Interest rates are important. Everyone should know what the interest rate is on anything that they are borrowing. The interest is the amount, is the cost that they're charging you to loan you money. The higher the interest rate, if you know, which goes back to our initial point for having this conversation today, if you are in tune and you know what your credit score is, you should know that there's a certain interest rate that I should be afforded because I have, quote unquote, good credit, or I understand I'm being charged this interest rate because I have, quote unquote, bad credit. So knowledge is power. A lien, you could go on to the next one. A lien is just the someone saying that they have a financial interest in this property, and until you make a payment, I will place a lien on your property until you pay off whatever you owe. Negative amortization just means you are making payments less than what is needed to cover the interest charges. So nothing is going towards your principal and not enough is going towards your interest. You'll hear people talk about your principal balance. The principal balance is the amount that you paid. It's the unpaid amount. So a portion of every payment that you make, whether it's a car note or a mortgage or a credit card payment, the principal balance is the balance that's unpaid, and it's going to be of you, what you're making every month. A portion of that money will go towards your principal balance, and a portion of what you're paying every month will go towards your interest. And a revolving account is just something that you're making payments on a regular basis. Credit cards are usually revolving accounts. Last but not least, you have a secured loan, a soft inquiry, and an unsecured loan. A secured loan is backed by collateral, your car. You make payments until you make the final payment and you actually own the car. Just like with your home, you make payments on your home until you make the final payment and you own the home. No different than with appliances or furniture. There is something in particular that if you don't make payments, I can confiscate. A soft inquiry it does not hurt your credit score, which in essence is what your annual credit report.com is. It's a soft inquiry. We're just pulling it to see what is being reported. Sometimes your insurance companies, if you're applying for insurance or a background check does a soft inquiry because they want to see. How many of you realize that when you're applying for a job and they do a background check, they're looking at your credit? Consider if you were applying for a job at the bank and you had bad credit. That can tell an employer She's only 1 month away from bankruptcy. He or she may be more inclined to embezzle money. That's really what people insinuate. That's what they come to the conclusion of based on what they see in your credit profile, which is why more and more people, same thing with life insurance. They want to look and see if a person is swimming in debt and everybody's foreclosing, that person may be more apt to commit suicide. So your credit profile tells a lot about you. Doesn't mean that the story it's telling is accurate, but it tells a story that people will equate to who you are. And then finally, the unsecured loan. The unsecured loan is what we call a signature loan. I am promising to pay you based on my word and my signature. You don't have to have a car or a house or guns or gold. I don't want anything as a guarantee. Your guarantee is that you promise to pay me, and you'll get more unsecured loans based on your credit worthiness. Okay. Let's play a few games. These should be very simple, based on what you know, based on what we have talked about today. And if you can and you will, please feel free to unmute at this time. And let's see what your answers are. True or false? A credit score and a credit report are the same. What do you think?
False.
Let's see. Exactly right. The score is a numerical number versus the credit report is just the accounts that are reporting on your particular bureau. Next screen. Good job. True or false? All three credit reporting bureaus may have different information about you and your credit activity. So there's good reason to look at all three.
True.
True. Would everybody agree? True? Let's see. True. Exactly right. My understanding is that Experian, I think I get it backwards sometimes. Experian, yes. Experian is probably the most used bureau. Experian and Equifax generally will have the same information. And when you go to your annual credit report, make sure that you select that you want all three of your bureaus. And you'll see that Experian and Equifax will generally be used the most, and they'll match. And you'll see some differences on TransUnion. It's because TransUnion is the least used. It just depends on that particular organization and which one they would like to use to, or which one your creditors are reporting to. Okay, next slide. Responsible debit card use can help boost your credit score. True or false? Responsible debit card use.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know about that one.
True.
You think it's true? I see Brittany said false. I see a couple falses. So the answer is false. What made this one most inaccurate? On our real estate test, they say which one is most accurate. What made this most inaccurate is the keyword of debit. There you go, Brittany. Debit card. The fact that it's a debit card. Now, let me play devil's advocate for a second. If you are irresponsible with your debit card use and you're over extending yourself and you have a lot of NSFs and it doesn't, you don't pay the bill, at some point it could end up being reported to your credit bureau. So the debit card really does not report to any bureaus at all. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, somebody said they couldn't. Okay. So that debit cards are generally not reported at all to bureaus, but it could be what you're using to pay, or paying with that debit card and the money not being there could pose an issue later. So yes, the answer is still no. Okay, next one, true or false? Checking your own credit bureau will not hurt your credit score. Checking your own credit bureau. Brittany says true.
I agree with Brittany.
You agree with Brittany? Answer. You are correct. Checking your own bureau will not hurt, because I'm not asking myself for credit. I am simply verifying the information is there. Next slide, please. Adding myself as an authorized user to a credit card can help boost my credit score.
True.
True. That's right. We talked about that. Yeah, so, true. But here's just a little tidbit of information. Make sure you're added to someone's credit card who's going to make the payments. because remember, exactly. If they are maxing their credit card out or late payments, whatever is reporting to their bureau is reporting to yours. And so we've seen instances, just as many instances that helped as hurt, because the person, you know, was either a late pay, slow pay, or they were charging it up. Okay. Next slide, please. As an authorized user, I am legally responsible for the balance.
No.
Yes.
False.
No, false. False.
This is my favorite slide because I am in the presence of two attorneys that I know of. So let's see what the answer has. Keep clicking.
What?
This was really a trick one. My professional answer is you're not legally responsible. That's my professional answer. You being added as an authorized user was designed to be an authorized user, not as a responsible party. I didn't use the word legal. I meant to use the word responsible party. I will defer to the lawyers on here and the judge, who I have seen personally, and I have been, unfortunately, a recipient of the letter that said, you owe this amount, because I was left, I was the person that was alive from my grandmother's credit card, or even my father's, where I was an authorized user. They send the bills to us too. I have been threatened before. I know somebody personally that has had to pay it. I don't know if it was because they chose to ignore it or what the case was, but there have been cases where being an authorized user, that person has been responsible. Judge Reese or Attorney Hayes, any insight?
I agree with you. I do not believe as an authorized user that you are legally responsible, although certainly the lender or the corporation will try to make you. And if you are a relative, like you said, if it's your mother or grandmother, then that brings in succession and other ramifications where you may not be directly legally responsible as an authorized user. You may be as an heir, should you use to accept the succession. That's another thing, but just strictly based on the question, I don't believe that you are legally responsible as an authorized user.
Exactly. That's what we were taught. But like I said, I guess it doesn't, anybody can file a suit. Is that a good answer? Anybody can try to collect money. So
yeah. Anybody can sue and will.
Okay, good job, everyone. Those were just a few obvious questions that people ask. In summary, next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, there was another one, but the question was, having a perfect credit score doesn't really matter. And that's true. You know, if you have an 850 or if you have a 700, it's a personal, it's an attainable goal. It's what you personally want to obtain. The reality of it is good credit, excellent credit, perfect credit, they're gonna all get good interest rates. You know, but to be able to say I have a perfect score is more of a personal goal. Here's the moral of the story that today: don't spend more than you earn.
Mm-hmm.
Use credit wisely, and knowledge is power. If you know what you know about yourself, you can command people to treat you as such. There have been instances, and I think my most prized moment with credit, personally, is being able to walk into a dealership and say, and I swear, you're not supposed to swear, I know we're on church thing. I said, do not pull my credit. This is my score. I would like that vehicle, and this is what I'm paying for. Now they tried, but I stuck with what I knew. I'd done my research. I knew what I brought to the table, and I knew what I was willing to pay. Knowledge is power. And the higher your credit score, the more power you put back in your own hands. Okay. And anybody can get there, regardless of where you are right now. As I told you earlier, I've been in the fives, I've been in the sevens. I'm hanging out in the sixes. But you know, we've been everywhere. But we took the time, we did the work, we understood what we needed to fix, habits that we needed to stop, and we did the work to get the power. And so I would encourage everyone, it's a process, but just know where you are in the process and do the work. Next slide, please. From the life insurance perspective, everyone needs to think generational wealth. Invest in life insurance. Everyone needs to go back to that moment where our grandparents had the insurance on the children. I don't know what it was about our parents, but it just skipped. Grandparents took responsibility. And it may be a place in time where we are now that grandparents are going to have to go back and start that. Because if we've got young people who think for the here and now, their parents, they are younger parents, they aren't thinking death, they aren't thinking long term. Maybe parents, grandparents, should I say, need to start thinking about investing in that insurance again for their children. Save more than you spend. It's very important to pay yourself. Tithe. That should have been number one, but pay yourself. Dr. Pruitt, and I hope she doesn't get me on saying this, she taught us as a church tithe of what we are even doing, even in the finance room, even if what we're doing. And the lessons that we've learned here, I've applied it to my own personal life. Tithe, pay tithes, and it's enabling me to save more also. So get in a place of tithing first, then tithe to yourself, maybe in some savings, and then put yourself on a budget. And in order to get on a budget, you've got to be honest with yourself to see where you're spending. What can I kind of cut back on, but I still want to enjoy traveling. I still want to enjoy eating out. It's not that you can't do it. Give yourself $100 budget then. Now, once this $100 is over, I've done my eating out for the month. Plan on travel so that you're not taking from your monthly bills. If you know you want to go to Jamaica's my thing now. If I want to go to Jamaica next year, I should be planning to get there, not in December taking a lump sum of anything out, because when you do that, what am I sacrificing? You know, what am I not paying to get there? Get a will. Wills help with generational wealth and transitioning your personal items, whether it's your car, whether it's your home. And don't think that anything is too little to have a will. We have people that fight, and I'm sure the judge and the lawyer on here could tell. We have people who fight over the lawnmower and the lawn equipment. Really. We have people who fight over their grandparents' ring, their wedding ring. When a simple will would say, I want this person to have this, I want this person to have this, and then the children aren't fighting. There's no infighting, because intestate versus testate, you create not only on an emotional people are already on an emotional roller coaster because they've lost their loved one. Now they're mixing their feelings with finances, and it's a bad combination. Okay. And then teach your children about good finances. I gave a presentation to my YPDers earlier last year, I think at Educational Congress, as a matter of fact. We gave them a budget, and we told them, okay, this is what you're going to have, and this is what you need to pay. And you'd be surprised if you sit down and look at, they don't understand how much that new iPhone costs, every upgrade. That it sounds like $29 added to, oh my, it's just $29 added to your bill. And then there's a $10 line fee, but my bill is $500 a month. And if you think about, if I am able to pay $500 a month for 5 or 6 people, however many people have in their household, I'm able to pay $500 a month for a cell phone bill, but I won't sacrifice $20 a month for life insurance. There's a problem there. We have Netflix for $13.99. You've got Hulu for $10, whatever it costs, and you've got DirecTV that people are paying $200 and $300 a month for. Our priorities start with our children. And if they don't understand budgeting, we are not allowing them the opportunity to move into adulthood and be financially successful. And then when we leave, our children are left to figure things out on their own. Okay. And that's how people take advantage of them. That's how we end up not letting our children live a better life. And it goes back to life insurance. If I can't be here with my children and my grandchildren or my husband, I want to leave $100,000 or a $300,000 policy that after he finishes mourning, I want him to mourn for a long time. But after he finishes mourning, he can still pay bills, and he won't have to find another Rolanda so quick to replace my income. But that's what we do. That's what we want to do. Think about life insurance as that last gift. I would like to leave you with this. I know what it is to have, and I know what it is to have not. Do you want the rest of your life to be a learning lesson, or do you want the rest of your life to be a result of the lessons that you have learned? Make good decisions and use every lesson as a stepping stone, every situation, and the things that we can control. We couldn't control the lifestyle we were born into. We couldn't control the location that we were brought up in as a result of the high school or even the college or anything that we went to, but we do control where we end up. We control the decisions by the decisions that we make. And it can be in the form of credit or life insurance or just living and making better decisions. Next screen. And any questions, comments, or concerns? Any ahas, that we call it, any ahas?
Can I just throw this in? We did have one question that was in the chat box, and that was for you to recommend some good universal life companies.
So of course, full disclosure, I still have my insurance license at State Farm. So of course, I'm going to recommend State Farm. But if for some reason, I do know that Allstate and State Farm and even Shelter, you want to make sure you choose some of the larger companies who have that longevity and history. And if it doesn't seem right, ask more questions or compare it, get a second opinion. I hope I don't offend anyone, but I am going to say something. It is a personal, but it is a professional opinion. Because I know there's going to be somebody on this call that does it. I'm just going to say it. There are some very good Primerica agents out there, I'm sure. There are some people that sell Primerica, and I'm using them for an example because we see it in this community the most often. I'm not going to say they are horrible because I don't think that's the case. I just think sometimes people sell a product that they don't fully understand because they don't always have to be licensed. But I will caution anyone from canceling something that they have to replace it with something else if they don't have a real reason for understanding why and how it's going to benefit them. We see too much that people will tell you, don't buy whole life, don't buy whole life. Whole life is bad, whole life is horrible, whole life, whole life, whole life. But they don't understand whole life is there for a reason. If the concept of buy term and invest the difference was so golden, everybody would be rich. But what happens is the buy term and invest the difference goes out the window when you turn 80 or 60 or 50 or 40, and you don't have enough investments to cover your cost of living or burial. And then we're starting now from a new attained age, or we've got new medical issues that make us uninsurable. So be very cautious about the concept of buying term and investing the difference. That's my personal and professional speech there. So whole life is the way to go. Everybody needs some form of whole life. Whole life is designed to insure you when you're young, cover you until you're old, when you can't afford the premiums of term, or when your children are already married and gone on and you just want to leave a little something to maybe the new grandbabies who you're in love with. you know, term is designed for those young years where I have a lot of debt and I don't want it to pass down. And I may or may not have a will because it's going to start moving down to my husband or attaching to my properties that we have. So that's why people buy term, but they will always have some form of whole life as an undergird there. I hope that was okay.
Okay, I have a question based on that because I did buy a term policy maybe.
Oh, I have term. I love term.
No, 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. But based on my parents' longevity, good Lord say the same, I'm going to pass 80 and now I'm at the point where I'm like, am I just throwing my money down the drain? But now I don't know how to switch horses because I'm sure now at 66, trying to start getting a whole life policy is probably going to cost me quite a bit, but I don't want to just be continuing to pay into the term when I could get something else. So I'm kind of like,
absolutely. So in cases like that, we would advise people to do one of two things. The first thing, in order to even buy insurance, everybody needs to sit down and I guess map out what their goal is. We call it the financial analysis. What's my goal? What's my end goal? Am I trying to pay off debts? Am I trying to replace income? Am I trying to leave something to my church? Or am I trying? You're really just doing a financial analysis of how much, because that will determine how much you need, right? And so for anyone, but we'll speak specifically to you, you should now look at what is my goal for this policy. If I have other assets that I know that I'm transferring to my children and whoever else I want to have, this insurance is really designed to bury me, then the conversation should be had with your insurance person that I've been paying this term policy. I want to convert it. It's called a conversion. I want to convert all or some of the policy. You can do it from a perspective of if I'm having $100,000 policy, I can convert all $100,000 to whole life. Whew, that's going to be expensive, but it can happen and people do it. Or I can say, I really only need $50,000 or $10,000. You can convert that, and then they will lock that in at your new attained age, and it will become it will become a whole life policy. And then that third option is you can just say, listen, I have about $70 that I'm willing to put towards insurance. How much insurance will this $70 get me that I could convert out of that whole life policy? I mean, out of that term policy. So conversion is your friend. And if the company and the rates don't really add up with conversion, at some point the conversation will have to be had with yourself. That's okay, what do I need to just stop and buy a burial policy, a final expense policy, or just a smaller whole life? You'd be surprised at anybody that's over the age of 50 can buy a $10,000 final expense policy. And if you buy it early enough, that 10,000, as we talked about earlier, remember that 10,000 will continue to grow. And 10,000 is more than enough now, for a respectable funeral. So it's just a decision that you're going to have to make. But at some point, you're right, you'll live to 80, 85 or longer. You're going to live that. My point is you'll live to that number, and then it's non-renewable. So it would have been a lifetime of payments.
Thank you. There was a question about how you go about repairing your credit.
So it's really simple. Start making payments. You want to put more on the bureau positive than that there is negative. So the first step is making current payments. So pull your annual credit report and then go through and look for collections. If you have collection items, those are the first things that you want. In order of importance. First of all, make sure everything is reporting accurately, okay? Continue to make payments. Bring anything that's reporting late, bring it current. How do you bring it current? Contact the creditor and see if there's an amount that you can pay that will bring you current so that you can start making payments and they will stop reporting negatively. Because what happens is if I fall behind, this happens a lot. If you fall behind on, let's say, a $50 payment and they added the $15 late fee. So now you owe $65 and it rolls into the month of April. And now you owe the $50 plus 15 more. You really owe $120 something now. And you say, well, I have the 65 and I make the $65 payment. You just made the $65 payment, but it's still going to keep reporting behind because a new month has rolled in. In your mind, you made the missing payment, but you have not made the total payment that's due. So they have the rights and will continue to report negatively. So the first thing you must do is figure out how to bring all of those payments, if you have any, current. Step number one, because you have to stop the bleeding. You want positive things to report out. Then your second stop would be looking at what's in collections on your account. Medical bills are the easiest to clear up. Usually you can call the credit bureau because if it's on your credit report, it's at some kind of collection agency. Call that collection agency and offer 40% off the top. Actually, I'd probably offer 30 and let them move you up to 40%. Most of the time, some money is better than no money. So if they will agree to an amount, guess what? You pay that amount. That bill then is supposed, if the agreement is, it's supposed to be removed. That negative inquiry, that negative reporting item will be removed, or you can go in and dispute it now because it's paid in full. Okay. So you want to start with those negative items to try to clear up as many negative items, and you want to feed your bureau more positive things. That's real, and time heals all wounds. If you see something wrong, dispute it and make payments. Dispute and make payments. And then keep those, last but not least, that debt to income ratio, that utilization, keep it under 30%. These are positive things that'll go. You just want to feed positivity to it. You're muted.
I'm sorry. A three-part question. First is asking about the snowball effect and is it effective?
I like the snowball. I gave that presentation. Look, y'all make me feel so important. I was able to give that presentation with Reverend Starks a few years ago. And I do have it saved. So if you invite me back, I can do it for you. The snowball effect. Let's do simple math. I'm all about simple for illustration. let's say we are currently making $500 worth of monthly payments on, $50 pay. I'm sorry, let's do $100. We're making $100 every month, $50 here, $20 there, $10 there. We already have that in our budget, right? So what the snowball says, it says, how much extra can you squeeze out of your budget on top of the 100? So let's say I can say, I'm not going to eat out. I'm not going to get my nails done this month. So, that's $35 there. And I'm only going to eat out twice a week. So I can probably find another $100 easily. So what you want to do is you want to look at all of your bills, your monthly loans, credit cards, things that you're making payment, your revolving credit. Lay them out. What is the minimum on each one of them? First of all, we need to identify the minimum, okay? Then you want to look at what is your smallest balance. So let's say we've got a credit card that had a $350 balance on it, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to make the minimum on everything else. Absolute minimum. If it's $25, if it's $30, we are paying the bare minimum. And remember that $100 that we went and found that we said we're going to sacrifice nails and hair and eating out? We're going to put that $100 plus whatever was left out of that original $100 that we were paying, because we're paying the minimum on everything. So maybe I have another $50 that I was kind of sort of paying. I thought I was paying $10 here, $10 there. We're paying the minimum. So out of the original 100 I already had in my budget, I have $50 extra. I'm going to take the $100 that I'm committing to, put it with the $50 that I found in the minimums. So now I have $150 that I'm going to put specifically on that $300 balance credit card, which would mean what? I would have that credit card paid off in 2 payments. Everybody follow so far? 150, 150, 2 months, I have that credit card paid off, right? So now I'm taking that $150 plus whatever the minimum was on that card that I was already paying. So maybe let's say it was $30. I'm taking that $150 plus $30, I have $180 now, and putting that whole $180 on the next smallest bill, right? Because I'm still paying the minimums. Once I've paid off that one, it may take 2 or 3 months to pay that one off, depending on how big the balance is. I'm taking all of those 2 payments of what I had, I'm making money in the house now. I'm taking all of that money and putting it on the 3rd bill. You see how the snowball works? So we are focused on paying one off. Once that one is paid off, we move all of the money from that one to the next one. Once that one is paid off, because we've now eliminated 2 bills that we were paying that month, we take all of those and put it on the 3rd one. Once that one is paid off, now I have 3 bills that are paid off, but I had that money allocated in my monthly budget. So it's a focused payoff system. It's, snowball starts small and it gets bigger and it gets bigger. And that's what the snowball effect. It takes consistency, and you have to be committed to doing it. But I have personally done it too, and it does work. It does work, but you have to be disciplined about it. People can pay off. Our goal, when Bishop brought up the debt-free in 23, our goal in my family, my husband and I, really is to have our house paid off in 5 years with just some concentrated extra payments, because anybody can do it. If you have any kind of loan, pull your amortization schedule. You have it in the loan packet. And look at each year, it tells you $100 is going towards principal, $150 is going towards principal. It will tell you what's going towards principal on every month out of every payment. And if you want to add to those principal amounts, it will tell you how much you need to be paying that month to pay off anything that you want to pay off that's on the schedule. And so the snowball will work, but people have to be in the mindset of, what's the goal here for me? To not have to not have a payment on a home, or that if I can pay this off, I can take all of my equity in this house and get my dream house, because I would be keeping the same note. If I have a $200,000 house and I'm paying off my $200,000 house, I'm going to have $200,000 of equity to put in my $400,000 house, but I would only be paying the $200,000 note. See, so there's a process and a way for people to achieve what they're wanting. And yes, I saw somebody in the chat, Union National and Security. If your family members are with Union National and Security, I need you to stage your intervention. That's if you have a blue and yellow envelope in your house, there's a problem. And I'm saying it with laughter, but there is a problem. Please understand.
Let me see. Brittany had a lot of questions. You and she might just have to have a separate chat, because I do have some other. Now, okay, you can ask your own questions then. Something about COBRA. Is that continued coverage you can buy into?
No, that was answering somebody else's question, but I was asking, how long does inquiry stay on your credit, and how do I get charge offs off of my credit?
So inquiries, usually anything that's negative can stay on for a prescription period of 7 to 10 years. I believe that is the official legal time frame, 7 to 10 years. You can play the game of disputing those inquiries that wasn't me. Oh my God, I just said that on the church. But they will stay on, but they too roll off at some point. I think when I look at them, they will say, they will categorize them over the last 2 years. They don't hurt as long as those late pays and those charge-offs, because it just, I'm visualizing it. It says 2 years on the, they will stay on the report, but people look at them for deciding whether they want to, help or extend credit for like that 2-year time frame. And the charge-offs, time heals those wounds, because that's an accurate report. You can always try to dispute something yourself. Just understand that disputing works. Disputing works, even you can dispute stuff that's accurate. But if it is determined that it is accurate, it will go back on, and it's like it starts the time all over again, because it's been validated that this is an accurate inquiry. And so it's kind of like, is it worth it? Or should I be more focused on feeding my report with more positive things?
Are there any more questions? Last call for questions.
Okay, this is I promise. Can I pay off charge off or no?
So you can pay them off. Just make sure, here again, this is the attorney, this is the legal side of it. Just make sure whatever you sign or whatever the agreement is, that they're going to remove it. If it's already a charge off, my semi-professional expertise would tell you, don't pay the bill in full, because they've already wrote it off as a bad debt. So, that's the ideal time to negotiate a settlement amount.
Any other questions?
I do want to answer one, Reverend Reese. It says, do you keep your employer insurance when you retire? I couldn't tell you an answer of yes or no unequivocally, but what I can tell you is usually, and I think there's a law, if I recall correctly, they have to notify you and give you the opportunity to keep it at the new rate. There's something, and I may be saying it wrong, but there should be some type of option. I know there's a form that has to go out, and so sometime you can keep it. It may not be worth it, because remember, it's a smaller amount anyway. Usually the insurance is like 2 times your salary, or maybe even 3 times your salary. It's directly related to your salary, so it may not be advantageous enough for the new amount to be able to keep. And I'm sorry, I saw you had responded also. It depends on the employer, yes.
All right, we did go a little bit over our time, but that's okay, because this was so good, and we've had so many positive responses about how powerful this is. I want to personally thank you because from the last presentation I attended in November, I immediately went to automatic payments for my new mortgage to make sure that I don't have any lingering extra interest being tacked on, even though it wouldn't show up as a late payment. So I thank you for that. And I thank you for all of the awesome information. And we would be honored to have you back whenever you want to come back, because this has been so motivational and powerful. We are breaking some financial chains. And for that, we thank you. Thank you for allowing God to give you the gift and then that you share it with us. And I also want to thank everyone else who joined us today. I pray that you have been blessed and that you don't hold this gift, that we share this information with as many folks, especially our family and our friends, our church members. Share it everywhere. So I do thank you all so much for joining us, and I'm looking forward to some witnessing and some reports about how our credit has been improved and how we have been able to change our situation and circumstances, and those around us as well. So God bless you all. Thank you so much. Let me just say a closing prayer and then we'll leave the line. Thank you, God, for this time together. Thank you for allowing Dr. Jackson to pour out her knowledge upon us. Thank you for her heart of love for you and for people, God. Continue to bless her, continue to use her. And as we leave this line, God, we thank you for the financial empowerment and freedom that you are giving us all. As we leave this line, but never your presence, we thank you, Lord, for watching over us as we go out and as we come in from this time forth and even forevermore. And it is in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.